My spotting of RDJ was at a diner in Studio City. I think is it called Hugo's? It's over there.
Yeah.
But, I think we were shooting Children's Hospital, Corddry, and I just went over there, and he walked in. Robert Downey Jr. walked in, and I lost my shit because it was like peak Iron Man. This is like a few years ago. I saw him at a diner. He ate breakfast. I watched every bite that he put in his mouth. He laughed and seemed like a nice guy, and he walked out. And I couldn't tell, if he was like a cool person or not. In my mind, he seemed cool, but I don't know. So it's not a great story.
It's a terrible story.
Let me tell you my story, Rob, and Rob's. So I'm doing this movie, Piranha 3D.
Oh,
Piranha 3D.
name dropper. What a name dropper.
Movie.
Yes, fantastic movie. Ving Rhames, Elizabeth Shue, Adam Scott, myself, Christopher Lloyd. Everyone's there. Star-studded. So at one point, there's a guy on the set of the film, and he is fulfilling that role of a sober buddy to one of the actors in the film. And every day that we were going to set, we would just chat, just have he was a really lovely guy. And he was telling me about his time in Hollywood and everything like that. And we're on this boat every day. And as we're on the boat, he tells me, he's like, one of my closest friends is Robert Downey Jr. If you ever see him, you got to tell him that you know me. And I was like, okay, great. And I don't think anything of it. And then those stories just keep on coming and coming and coming. He's like, oh yeah, RDJ and I were doing this thing. Oh yeah, I visited RDJ this week. He starts calling him RDJ. I was like, RDJ, and he goes, you on a Comic-Con this weekend? And I go, yeah. And he goes, RDJ is going to be there with some pretty cool Iron Man 2 footage. You got to go check it out. And I go, oh, I will. Yeah, for sure. And he goes, let him know I said hey. And I was like, okay. So now that day I had been doing something at Comic-Con where I had a badge that allowed me to get into Hall H. I could walk anywhere I wanted. And it was the first time that June had ever gone to Comic-Con, and she was daunted and not totally excited about it, but like she was there for me. She had a margarita and she was ready to go. So I'm like, I'm going to show her the best way of Comic-Con. I'm going to bring her into this like back room and we're going to like hang out. And it was the Marvel panel. So everybody, it's still early Marvel at this point. It's Iron Man 2. So it's the Marvel panel. There's so much energy around. Everyone's talking around. I'm with June. Now keep in mind, June was in the movie Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr. So we're hanging out in there. Everyone's like, okay, the Marvel panel's starting. Let's go. And we all walk to the elevator. And then I get like right next to Robert Downey Jr. Like he is a foot in front of me. And I don't know what happens. It was maybe the margarita that I had. And I'm like, hey, Robert. And I'm like, why am I calling him Robert? I've never met this man. And he turns around and looks at me. I'm in such an insular group, and he clearly does not know anything. Not that he should, but it's like, okay, who's this guy? I am looking at him. I'm like, hey, so-and-so says hi. We're friends. And he looks at me with the most blank stare, as if like I just like spoke an alien language, like he looks like that's, and I'm like, and then every pore in my body begins to sweat. And I'm like, and then he has two giant security men who like turn and look at me, and their necks are like giant. And I'm like, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, he said that you guys are friends. He goes, oh, and then Robert's like, who is he? And I say his name again. And he goes, yeah, I don't know that guy. and I'm like, my heart is racing. June was holding my hand in the middle of this interaction. She lets it go, like pulling a ripcord on. Like she's gone. Like June in the movie with Robert Downey Jr. is like, I'm out. And now the interaction is over. I feel like so crazy, and we're still waiting in line for the elevator. And so I don't know what to do. So I just kind of walk back like that Homer Simpson meme where he goes into the bushes. Like I just try to I walk backwards out of the elevator group thing. It was the most humiliating experience. I will never talk to anybody ever again. I don't believe that anyone's friends with anybody. Yeah. But it was terrible.